knowledge procedures to take care of artifacts and human remains. Unfortunately, that oftentimes means excluding women from researching the past. And it does so because museums and universities, speaking with Native American activists, have decided that ancient menstrual taboos should keep women away from skeletal remains, from artifacts, should actually even keep them away from conducting field work with other colleagues, and have shut them out of even eating the meal and campsites and field work. So it's a very discriminatory practice that's coming about. And I'll give you a couple examples. Henry Ford Museum mentions that in case of gender restrictions, appropriate staff members will be on hand to handle artifacts and historic objects. And what they mean by appropriate staff members is not women. In Texas, the 2025 guidelines for archaeology says that there are role-specific access. Certain people should not see, hear, or touch certain items. These restrictions are often gender-based. And so basically what they're saying is that women should not touch, see, or hear about certain items. And I've been contacted by archaeologists from states like Illinois and Wyoming who say that this kind of sex discrimination practice is spreading. And it's even spreading outside of anthropology. The University of Massachusetts, on the new 2026 guidelines for palliative care, states a woman should not come near sacred objects during menstruation. So this has leaped out of anthropology and into medical care, and it is disgraceful.
So is this medical care only on the tribal lands hospitals? Or I'm sitting here listening to you and I can't believe this is happening in 2026. They're asking women if they're menstruating. Do you have to share when you're I don't understand what's happening here.
Unfortunately, it's not only on tribal lands. It's in every federally funded museum and university that has to follow these guidelines. And NAGPRA is, of course, for archaeology. But Biden passed a traditional knowledge mandate that spread the same concept of sex discrimination beyond anthropology. And the question is, do we have to, are they asking women, tell us when you're menstruating? They're expecting women to tell them. And even if women lie and don't say it, is that the kind of world we want to live in?
Welcome, everybody.
Basically, you're worried that somebody's going to
say hi in chat, please.
Therefore, you shouldn't be on the job.
And I thought we conquered all of this. I'm sorry, but Dr. Weiss, we already went through this with the women's movement. We decided that menstruating was a private issue unless a woman wanted to share. We kind of tackled this already. What are they doing?
Exactly. It's the regressive progressives, I call them, and basically they are taking regressive stands, whether it's menstruating taboos from Native Americans or celebrating Wear a Hijab Day for and covering up, even encouraging non-Muslims to cover up on that day. I think this is an anti-Western movement, and it's like as long as it's anti-West, they're going to sign up for it, even if it's regressive. I think that's one of the things that's going on. Ironically, when my own university tried to pass a menstrual taboo to keep people from, including myself, from accessing archaeological materials, they couldn't even bring themselves to say the word woman. They said menstruating personnel, because in their progressive minds, men can menstruate too.
Oh, that's right. So do they ever cordon the men off? and say they can't come in and do the research because they're menstruating. I mean, because equal opportunity.
That would be absolutely absurd. I wouldn't, it wouldn't surprise me.
Gosh. It wouldn't surprise me either, but I'm still just sitting here trying to figure out, because I can tell you I would be livid if I was out to do research and someone said, "Are you menstruating?" I would say, that is not your business.
I would be livid too. And it's not even just like, oh, you can't do research. They literally, in field schools, when archaeologists get their training, they go to field school as students. And they've literally told female students, if you're menstruating, then you cannot engage in field work. So you have to stay behind in the tent or the lab. And furthermore, you cannot eat with the crowd. You cannot talk about sacred things. And, God forbid you approach a traditional Native American elder while you're menstruating. And then these progressives will sometimes try to say, well, it's because women are so powerful during menstruation. But we know that these menstrual taboos did not arise out of thinking women are powerful. They arose why many sexist laws rose, or sexist beliefs rose. They arose because they think that women are dirty during that time. And any woman who is in a university and enforces these types of taboos should be ashamed of herself.
Hey, Faye.
And also,
did that? Welcome.
How did these?
Sorry, I'm just mapping out my stop at Sheets.
Now, I know that some people are going to say, "Oh, well, you don't have respect for the Native American religion." Well, actually, I don't, because when these weren't the founders. This was Columbus, and they were discovering America, the continent, discovering, being in quote fingers because there were already people here, but it was new to them, and they came, and the tribes that were here were sacrificing 80,000 babies a year to get rain and everything else. So clearly, some religious practices are superior to others because some are compulsory, while others are, you can decide, because Christianity doesn't have a compulsory aspect to it. Catholicism, most of the religions that we have in our country now, you choose to be a part of them. So I guess I'm just wondering why are we giving acknowledgement to these aren't really religions. They're bad practices.
They're bad practices. And quite honestly, who knows which of these beliefs are new or newly made up. We, obviously, when first contact arose in the Americas, there were a ton of very bad practices.
Shit. Sorry. All right, let me fix this now.
These types of actions and these types of horrors, not starting to reinstate some of them. So I think that there's a lot of guilt, white guilt about, the Europeans came over and they took land. And we know that there, of course, terrible things happen in history. It's not as clear and black and white as Europeans evil, Native Americans good. It's a complex story that deserves to be told accurately, and it doesn't require us embracing barbaric actions.
Right. So when you say there's guilt, I am one of those people who I do not feel that the guilt is appropriate, because none of the people who engaged in those things then are alive today.
Yeah, I do not feel guilty for something that happened hundreds of years before I was born.
And with no context, because there's a lack of context when we have guilt around, obviously we don't say, well, it was just fine, right? We learn about it, but the impetus to feeling guilty about it is to me,
I think it's bizarre.
Yes,
And the other thing I think is that isn't it much easier to shut down research than to actually engage in research? And I think that might be why some of the quote-unquote dumbest people are rolling in academia now, because it's easier to shut down research than to actually engage in research and do interesting things.
Right. And can I just say, because I don't mean to, because I have a friend who she hates it when I use the word dumb, or but I'm not here for the word police. I'm here as a part of this discussion to really lay out something that has been. We have suicidal empathy is what Gadzak calls it. He's just recently written a book on suicidal empathy, and he's a brilliant thinker and someone
he's a brilliant thinker, and he's a genuinely good and decent man as well. I've met him a couple times.
Yes, he's been on the show a couple times, and what I have found from him has been that he makes you think about things, and even if you are holding the opposing view, you can't help but admit that the way he's positing it is bringing a benefit to you in the way that you think. And so my hope is that we're going to see more people step away from suicidal empathy. It's almost like the virtue signaling that we see people doing, where they want to be seen as being superior. So it's kind of like the cocktail party set, where they want to genuflect and say, well, I donate to the Southern Poverty Law Center, for instance, which nowadays that's an embarrassment and you shouldn't admit it. But many of them were so adamantly in support of it initially that we know that they supported it. And so there really isn't any way to escape the dastardly, unbelievably nonsensical engagement that they undertook. And so we end up with a society where people will knowingly support something, even though it is obviously bad, like the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're not sure how to get away from it. They're not sure what they can say or do to fix their obvious stupidity in that area, which we've been calling out the Southern Poverty Law Center and saying that they're no good anymore for years now. And people kind of mocked us. I was told that I hate myself as a Black person. One of the only organizations in America that I should even support is the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I was like, well, I don't know if maybe back in the day, but not anymore. Why not anymore? Because you believe in the horrible things that President Trump has filled your head with. And I'm like, well, he hasn't filled my head with anything, because I was conservative before I knew President Trump. Before Trump was a candidate, I was like this. I was a conservative. So none of these things make sense. And then the fact that we allow ourselves to be influenced by these people, to have them in charge, like to have these people in charge of research, I find that to be ludicrous.
I do too. And unfortunately, people might think that anthropology, a university anthropology and museum anthropology is this minor thing, sliver, esoteric, and it's not going to bother anybody if they have absurd beliefs. It doesn't. It stops there. It spreads beyond the ivied walls, and it gets into every nook and cranny of our society. Because, for example, in public universities, anthropology is one of the most commonly taken general education class. So you have all sorts of people who don't major in anthropology being exposed to some of these beliefs, and it's being told that they have to accept them, and that if they don't accept them, that they are racist. And it's not racist to say that you don't accept sexism. Literal sexism. We're not even talking about, just speech, but actually barring women from work. And then on the flip side, it's funny that these same people cannot bring themselves to define what a woman is, except when they're willing to exclude them.
Yeah. Hey, here's a woman. Yeah, she can't be with us. she can't be here. She's she's menstruating. Oh my gosh, just saying it is so ridiculous.
It is absurd. Yeah.
Saying it out loud, like saying the word menstruation in relation to whether or not someone can work.
Yeah.
Okay, so there are a few more details here. You talked about the report from the Goldwater Institute and the ideological activism. You talked about the striking issue raised in the report that women, biological women, are excluded. In the year of our Lord 2026, there's also a report about cancel culture halting the scientific exploration of America's past. So this is now well-documented nonsense and nincompoopry that these people are engaging in. Yeah. Is there anything people can do that are listening tonight thinking, they just feel like, whatever this is crazy?
Well, I think the thing is that, the law, NAGPRA, is a federal law. So people can reach out to their congressmen, to their senators, and say, I heard about this, and this is a federal law. How can this federal law be written in a way that will be used to exclude women from research? Also, if you're at a university and you hear about this, or you're working in the government and you hear about this, we have Title IX at universities to protect women from these actions. And so I encourage any student or professor or who comes across these kinds of menstrual taboos at universities to file Title IX actions, a Title IX claimant against this. That is just the threat of filing that has made my university back down on their menstrual taboo.
Wow. Okay, so that's fantastic. That's an answer that people are really they're looking for. How can we put a stop to this nonsense?
Yeah, and I would say that we haven't talked a lot about the trans issue, but it is the flip side of the trans issue in a sense that keeping real women away from work and allowing non-women to be in spaces that really were meant to be for women so that they have equal opportunity. It's taking equal opportunity away from women in both ways. And our universities are right at the forefront of that.
Unbelievably, because when you say usually the universities are at the forefront of eliminating discrimination, not promoting it, right? Not the whole purpose of a university education is, one, you want people to be involved in learning how to think, learning how to gain professional experience, and then also the research that's done. And this activity that you're discussing and highlighting for us tonight actually eliminates research, eliminates voices from research who could be the ones who would discover amazing new things, new facts, new information. There's no limit to what can be discovered, except if you're not allowed to be there. If you can't, it's kind of hard to make new scientific and historical research discoveries if you aren't allowed to do the work that you've been trained to do.
Yeah, and one of the beautiful things about the American idea, the American ideology, American culture, is that we're not supposed to be judged on, the people that we came from, like a class system. We're not supposed to be judged by the color of our skin, and we're not supposed to be judged by our sex when it comes to being able to engage in society. We're judged as an individual, and that's one of the beautiful things about America.
It is, and it's also something that we've been so proud of. It's one of the reasons why so many people from very diverse countries are obsessed with becoming Americans. There's no limit to what can be discovered, except reasons why so many people from very diverse countries are obsessed with becoming Americans.
Let's just jump over to that.
Are you still struggling with money?
Museums are possibly even more liberal. So no, I haven't come across a real right winger who's like, no, if you're menstruating, I don't want to talk to you.
Yeah, a little bit of a tough space if you are a what's called right winger and you dare to talk to a woman about whether or not she's menstruating. I mean, that could be deadly for you. This is something that we have learned again and again and again is cancel culture will come for you with the ferocity that is kind of unmatched. Close us out here. Is there anything else you'd like us to know? We've had a wide-ranging discussion, and I really am. I'm surprised, but I do know there's a solution, and you highlighted it, which is so great. It's so good to leave on a note where we know there is something that can be done.
Yeah, let's not give up hope. Let's get rid of these menstrual taboos. As you said, women have won the right to be equals already. So let's not lose that right by kowtowing to absurd ideas like menstrual taboos or like hijabs or like allowing male athletes to take away scholarships from female athletes.
All of those are the craziest things we've encountered so far this decade. And it'd be great to put them in the rearview mirror. But the only way that happens is if we work together. The Title IX complaint is a great start. If you see this happening at your student's university, at your university, you are empowered to step out there and fight back. So everyone, we're really blessed that you're willing to talk about this and to highlight this. I was on your X feed and I was reading the post and I was like, my gosh, what an overdue conversation. Like, we have to talk about this. And so here you are. So we'll have you back. Definitely want to hear more, and especially about the research that you do, and how this continuing issue develops as we begin to fight back. Thank you so much, Dr. Weiss, for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. You're welcome. It's good to talk to you. And you can follow her. She's a great Twitter feed. It's full of things that I don't normally read about. So it's really good. E. Weiss Unburied. And that's her X.com feed. Okay, we'll be right back with more Stacey on the Right on Sirius XM.
The NBA Finals are on Sirius XM.
There are certain guys that you need to win NBA championships.
It's Jalen Brunson and the Knicks.
Fires a big one right side. Jalen Brunson can't be stopped right now.
Versus Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs.
Three ball on the way. Yes, sir.
Victor Wembanyama feeling. It's Game 3 tomorrow night at 8:30 Eastern. Hear the Knicks broadcast on NBA Radio, Channel 86. Hear the Spurs broadcast on Channel 81 and the Sirius XM app.
Bug Out Bag, designed for elite survivalists, preparedness experts, and field-tested professionals, is now available to the public. My Patriot Supply, America's #1 preparedness company, has just announced their Elite Bug Out Preparedness Kit with everything you need to escape a crisis and survive on your own, including food, water, and tools for starting fires, making shelters, catching fish, trapping small game, cooking off-grid, and much more. Get yours now and take $100 off at the regular price at MyPatriotSupply.com. The $100 discount expires soon. Go to MyPatriotSupply.com today.
Hi, I'm Kathy Hill, founder of Tax Tiger. Tax Tiger operates on the Christian principles of honesty and integrity. Not only do we protect you from the IRS, we prepare your back taxes, release wage and bank levies, and negotiate the best settlements in the nation. Call Tax Tiger today to schedule your free consultation or visit us online at taxtiger.com.
Call today, 1-800-IRS-9196. That's 1-800-IRS-9196.
Now is the time to visit Pinehurst Resort, the cradle of American golf. Pinehurst is more than fate #2 and anchor site of the U.S. Open. It is Tom Doak's masterful #10. 4 historic hotels and the newly built luxury cottages at Pinehurst #8. The one-of-a-kind Titleist shop at Pinehurst and the new Peter Millar shop. A trio of dynamic dining experiences in Station 21, Plate, and the newly opened Wiregrass. Pinehurst blends timeless charm with the very best of the game today. Visit Pinehurst.com to plan your stay.
Hi, it's Christopher Cabano, founder of Untucked. 15 years, 15 million shirts sold, and we're still the best in the game. Which means Untucked also has the best gifts for Father's Day, now on sale. He'll love to unwrap wrinkle-free cotton to save him time in the morning, performance stretch styles he never has to iron, polos for golf, and more. All perfect for the summer. Shop our Father's Day sale going on now at untuckit.com or at one of our 80-plus stores nationwide. Untuck It, shirts designed to be worn untucked. I came to California, I was broke, nowhere to stay. Story of passion and perseverance, triumph and influence. And a voice that still resonates. Rock the Bells presents the Tupac Tales. Say hello, Cool J. Tupac was a super talented dude who did tremendous things for the culture. All his music and stories celebrating the life of Tupac Shakur during Black Music Month. On now, the Sirius XM, included with most subscriptions on your phone, computer, Alexa, TV, or wherever you stream. Call 866-957-2874. Station on your right. Station Washington, but Sirius XM Gateway 125.
Yes, I have to tell you, I get to interview amazing people on this show. It's a dream job. I don't know if anybody else has a good job like I do, but this is the job. And so I'm welcoming back to the show Damian Brady, Vice President of Research for the National Taxpayers Union Foundation. He runs NTUF's Taxpayer Budget Office at Damian Brady on X.com. Follow. Hey, welcome back.
Hey, thanks for having me on. How are you?
I'm doing well. I know I shouldn't be exuberant to talk about taxes and budgets, but I am.
Yeah. And this is a really interesting topic we'll be discussing shortly.
Yes, and so that's the thing. This is actually what Americans want more of. I can tell you from our past conversations I've had with not just you, but your other cohorts at NTU and NTUF, that Americans really appreciate the detail that you provide. They appreciate having an understanding. They don't have time to go through the research themselves, and they want something factual that's not ideologically based. They just want to know what's going on. And so you're bringing us something very interesting tonight. You're talking about members of Congress filing a lawsuit for retroactive salary increases. You could knock me over with a feather because this is not what I would expect from them. But here we are.
Yeah, and not a lot of people know about this this lawsuit. I've been trying to raise awareness of it, and people are outraged when they learn about this. It could cost a lot of money if they're successful, not only for their salary, but also then they can go to the Office of Personnel Management and the Office of Personnel Management, which manages the congressional pension system, and say, hey, you need to recalculate our pensions because those are based on salary. So if you can reset our salary to a higher rate, we all should get a higher pension. So this is going to lead to a lot of liability for taxpayers.
So let me just understand, because I want to make sure I'm not going to be talking out of school and I'm, kind of ripping into this later with every person that I encounter. This may be my new elevator open. Members of Congress are suing for retroactive pay increases. And how are you today? This is that. You know what? If they can do it, why can't I sue my employer for retroactive pay? I mean, what are they even doing? How is this legal for them to sue us?
Yeah, it's a really interesting history behind this. Ultimately, it goes back to 1789. James Madison, of course, one of the founding fathers, he wrote the 27th Amendment to the Constitution, which wasn't ratified until 1992. And it's a pretty simple amendment. It just says that any changes to a member's can't go into effect unless there's been a election until after an election. That way, this prevents self-dealing, so that way members just can't go ahead and give themselves a salary without having to face with the taxpayers and the voters, and if they don't like that, they can vote them out. So then fast forward to 1992, it finally got ratified, which is an interesting story because a couple of years earlier, students in college, either in college or grad school, wrote a paper saying that the James Madison's amendment still had an opportunity to be ratified, and his professor gave him a bad grade, and he said it was impossible. So he made it his mission to get the last states to approve this, and so it finally got ratified in 1992. So then go back a little bit right before that, the Congress has gotten really tired of voting for salary increases because it's politically unpopular. So in 1989, they passed a law providing for automatic cost of living adjustments for themselves and some other federal employees. And there were some reforms limiting some outside income that they could get. So then that becomes the basis of law. Every year they're going to get these automatic pay increases. And then starting in 2009, most years, Congress has generally blocked those pay increases from going into effect. So the plaintiffs are saying that even though the members' salaries are staying the same as a result of those votes, they should have been higher. So it's a change in salary in violation of the 27th Amendment. So that's the whole interesting history behind this lawsuit. We've been trying to talk about the ramifications that could have imposed on taxpayers.
So how much are we talking here? And what year does it specifically go back to again? Sorry.
So yeah, 2009 is when they really started freezing their salaries every year, keeping it in place. So the lawsuit was filed, I believe, in 2024. The judge limited at the time, saying you can only go back the last couple of years because of the statute of limitations. And then he did a ruling last week saying that the case can go forward, that they do have grounds to sue for damages. And so then there's going to be some more oral arguments and hearings in the court coming up later this year to discuss have damages. And then he also opened up the possibility of allowing damages to go all the way back to 2009, not just to the last couple of years over the statute of limitations. So if it goes back to the limited period, it could cost at least $69 million. But, if you calculate the savings that all those COLA increases have had since 2009, that's hundreds of millions of dollars in savings. Now, they would have to determine which vote violated the 27th Amendment and then go back through somehow and try to calculate how much each member could get. So it's really convoluted. And if Congress knew at the time that they were making those votes that they were in violation of the 27th Amendment, they probably would have done something different. So that just makes it even more difficult to calculate these damages. I mean, ultimately, these damages are going to fall on taxpayers and for all these liabilities for the salary and then untold amount for the congressional pensions. And it's also going to do bad reputational harm to Congress after we've just been through the issues with Eric Swalwell and Tony Gonzalez and the representative from Florida who had to resign out of corruption, and Senator Menendez, who's now in jail because of corruption. I'm urging these members to withdraw their case because of all the damages that they can have on Congress and on taxpayers.
Well, and because I was going to bring that up, but you covered that perfectly. I'm sorry. What about all of the fraud, waste, and abuse that we saw going on? Like, we actually saw during the Doge run up when it was being spun up. I know Doge is still going on, but I mean, when it was like, top of the news, where not only do they have congressional insider trading, but many of them, their family members are working for USAID. I mean, it's a whole, I don't want to say they're all grifters. I don't believe that. But there's certainly a lot of ways to enrich yourself. Why do they need this retroactive back pay? They make $172,000 a year to work 3 days a week.
That's an excellent point. Some of them are doing it out of, well, they can say they're probably doing it out of principle. One of the former members of Congress, Representative Tom, and this is a bipartisan issue, by the way. There are Republicans and Democrats involved in this lawsuit. One of them is, a partner at a huge law firm right now that that makes money hand over fist. So he's probably going to be able to say he's doing it out of principle because he thinks members of Congress are underpaid. So, if people think that this is the worst remedy by seeking this lawsuit against taxpayers, against the people you're supposed to be representing and serving, and adding to the deficit as a result of that. So, have a vote, have a debate in Congress. If they think their salary is not appropriate. Some people argue that we should be more, their salary should be more competitive with the private sector. But, do people really think that we'll get better representation if they have more salary, higher salary? That's it, worth of a debate, but not this reckless lawsuit.
Yeah, it's a lot. I would love to, on principle, I'm like, okay, principle, I understand principle, and you don't want to set a precedent where people can be mistreated. But members of Congress, I've never had it so plainly impressed upon me as when I went to the Cannon office building. And I like the members of Congress. There's a ton of them that I think are admirable people. There are also hundreds of them, so it makes it's not like I know just hundreds of them, but we have had dozens of them on the program. They all have staff. They all have amazing offices, a flat panel TV on the wall in every single room, gorgeous brand new carpet and furniture inside. The whole place has had a refluff recently. And then there's the money for their staff. Like, they have numerous people who work for them in their offices. They have access to money for congressional delegations to go outside of the country. I fail to see where they've missed anything, where they've lost out. The times where their pay was frozen, the government was overspending by such a degree. It was meant to highlight just how bad spending was. So to go back and undo all of that, I agree with you that if they succeed, it's a real black eye.
Yeah, so I also believe that they are really misconstruing the 27th Amendment. The language is pretty simple. It says, no change salary shall go into effect until after an election. Basically that's what it said. And James Madison's intent, wasn't to prevent fiscal discipline. It was to prevent members of Congress from self-dealing, lining their own pockets. So it seems like this lawsuit is a terrible example of self-dealing, like I said, suing basically the taxpayer that they're supposed to be representing. Instead of have a debate on if they deserve a higher salary. I don't know. If you look at their some members are doing good, but overall we have a $39 trillion deficit for national debt, and let's move towards the path where we can have a balanced budget based on policies that are pro-growth and encourage investment and job creation, as well as cutting back on these programs. If we do that, I'd be happy to give them a member of Congress. But currently we have a $39 trillion debt. This lawsuit is a terrible way to try to claw money out of taxpayers.
They're out of touch, man. They're way out of touch on this one.
We've got about an hour and a half to go. So.
On the program who was talking about the fact that the congressional members are so detached because they don't feel like they can really help anyone because they have 770,000 constituents, potentially. That's the largest a congressional district can be. Since the number is capped at 435, but the country has 330 million people in it, you have congressional members who are largely unresponsive. They're not responsive to their constituents. He suggested we can shrink it back down and make each congressional member responsible for more like 45,000 people. So we have a whole lot more congressional districts, but the budget for them would remain the same, meaning they wouldn't all have an office in D.C. They wouldn't, all the things that they have going on right now, because they have rock star status, 435 of them in a country of 340 million, that would cease to be the thing, because there would be, about a couple thousand of them. There'd be thousands of them. They would no longer have, they would have to vote electronically. It would just take all of the teeth out of this current situation where they're treated like, instead of public servants, they're treated like they're our betters.
Yeah, it would be great if we had more citizen legislators and fewer career politicians. People come to Congress and they just hang out for decades and decades. Some people have argued that freezing the salary results in turnover, which I think that's a good thing. I think we should have fresh voices coming in regularly to Congress to represent what's going on at the grassroots level on a more periodic basis.
The lawsuit is a demonstration of what we've known for a few decades now, certainly for the last 15 years, which is that Congress needs reform. Not that they need to reform something, but that they themselves as an entity need to be reformed. And they're the last ones who are going to want to do it. Because if they're fighting for pay increases, how tone deaf is that when most Americans just got their first pay increase since COVID last year? Like, I'm just trying to figure out how they think how do they think America works? It's not a land of oligarchs. We have oligarchs here. We probably have the most of any other country. But it's not 340 million oligarchs. It's a couple thousand of them. And then the rest of us are working for a living. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the members of Congress make 3 times the median salary of hourly workers around the country. So,
That's right.
That should be perspective for themselves. Well, you mentioned reform now. They have done some reforms. And, for example, there's another outrage against Congress discovered back during the Me Too era, where Congress basically had a settlement fund for harassment. If members accused of harassing each other, they could do it filing the settlement fund. So I believe it was Representative Mace had disclosure on the payments that were made from that. But also years ago, Congress did reform that program so that if a member does use it to handle a harassment claim, they would have to compensate the Treasury. So since that happened, I forget what year it was, but it's been a while now, there has been no, and there's going to be transparency in that, but there's been no reports of a member using that. But doesn't mean that they aren't just dealing with these things out of pocket, but at least it's not at the taxpayer's expense.
I wrote about that in my book in 2022, and it was an outrage back then. Your update makes me feel a lot better. I mean, I feel like highlighting it here on the show, it was everywhere. But, it hardly get any credit here because there were so many outlets that were like, the congressional members have a slush fund, and I was thinking to myself, how do they have it? You have to have CEOs across the country who are like, wow, that could come in handy for things that are going on here. But the long and the short of it is that we need to highlight with the same ferocity this lawsuit. And if we can't get them to end it on their own, we should shame them into it. Because there are millions of Americans who have gone for years without a pay increase, and they've happily continued to do their work because they're glad to be employed. They're just grateful that they're still getting a paycheck. They're grateful to still be able to keep and maintain the same job, and they know that their employer is going to, try to make things right when they can. And I think most employers, they really do want to make things right. They do want to compensate their employees well when they go through lean times. When times are good, they try to offer bonuses. They try to stretch out. But this isn't that. The members of Congress make an amazing sum of money. And if they can't live on that, maybe they should cut back. So close us out here. Is there anything more we can do to help in the quest? Because you're doing the yeoman's work. You're writing about it. You're telling us how this thing works. What else can we do?
Yeah, I agree with you. I've been trying to get these members of Congress involved in this lawsuit to drop it because of the harm to taxpayers and to the reputation of Congress. And I believe that the House and Senate could pass resolutions to inform the judiciary that freezing members' salary should not be considered inconsistent with James Madison's 27th Amendment. And then also Representative Ralph Norman from South Carolina, he had the bill that would repeal the automatic annual adjustments, which was the basis for this whole lawsuit in the first place. So it would force them to have to go back and debate and consider what is an appropriate salary rather than just getting things automatically, that so many Americans don't get that automatically.
Yeah. It's a pretty big deal. Who in America gets an automatic increase? What's the percentage the cost of living that they get automatically?
There's it's a formula, so it could be 2 to 3% a year, something like that. Sometimes higher, depending.
Well, I guess we all wish we could have COLA increases, right? Just automatically, without having to do anything. Maybe we need to start working on, for ourselves, just getting that out into our own agreements. I guess that's one thing we can try to do instead of being upset that they've got it all going on. I want there to be no mistake that I understand that being a member of Congress is far more complex than just what we see. But then again, I come to this as a regular person, a regular American. We need them to acknowledge that they're in the top. They're in the very tip top of our society when it comes to hours worked in comparison with what they do for a living, and that is saying something. I recommend people go and read. What we need to do is we need to go and read. You can get the information that we're talking about now, the details, on the website for NTUF. Give everybody the contact so they can get this information that you have so diligently compiled.
Yes, thank you. It's at ntu.org. You can find information from the National Taxpayers Union and from the foundation. I do a lot of research and analysis and budget work in support of my colleagues at NTU who are knocking on doors in the halls of Congress and in state legislatures as well.
See? So all you got to do is join in. This is a fantastic opportunity to make a difference, and to let these elected officials know that some of this isn't really going on. We don't appreciate it. So good to have you back. Follow at NTU and also at NTUF on X.com. Have a great weekend. Good to talk to you, Jimmy.
Thanks to you as well.
All right, have a wonderful weekend, and we'll be back with more Stacey on the right after this. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Your stay at the Eagles Hotel California channel is extended. We're still here playing these songs. They have taken on a life of their own. Stories behind iconic Eagles songs, guest DJs, and a fan-voted countdown. Looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. Hotel California through June 18th, 105 in the Sirius XM app.
When we started Oakland Roots Sports Club, we needed a strong foundation. Gusto has had our back since day one, making sure every hire, every paycheck, and every player is taken care of. They're the team behind our team. With Gusto, we stay rooted and give Oakland the love it deserves.
See why 500,000 businesses trust Gusto for payroll, HR, and more. Get started for free at gusto.com/roots.
Hi, I'm Joe Perillo with JoePerillo.com. We know many of you are searching for just that right pre-owned luxury vehicle. That's why I want to tell you about JoePerillo.com.
It used to be that stuffing tissues up your nose was really the only way to stop your messy, frustrating nosebleeds. Nampons are the doctor-recommended better option that over 3 million people have already discovered. So what's a Nampon? Nampons fit inside your nose perfectly, expand for gentle pressure, and even have a clotting agent clinically proven to stop the bleeding fast. And now Nampons are available at Walmart. So ditch the tissue and be prepared for your next nosebleed. Pull into Walmart right now and get Nampons in the first aid aisle. Business owners, tired of slow banks, piles of paperwork, and credit-based loan denials? At Signet, funding is based on your revenue, not your credit score. No red tape, no waiting weeks, just fast access to capital with real people who understand small business. You need to be in business at least 1 year and averaging $50,000 a month or more. Get started at signetfunding.com. No cost, no obligation. That's SIGNET funding.com. signetfunding.com. Are you neglecting your 401k? Hi, I'm Brad Wall, founder of Bison Wealth. We manage 401k accounts just like yours. Most people rarely open their statements and almost never change their investments. If you've had the set it and forget it mindset, you should adjust course right now before it costs you hundreds of thousands of dollars. Contact our experts at powermy401k.com.
Bison Wealth is an SEC registered investment advisor. 3% average based on Aon Hewitt study. See powermy401k.com for more information.
Missed any of the show? You can catch up on the SiriusXM app. This is Stacey on the right on the SiriusXM Patriot.
125.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I love it when a plan comes together when great things happen because businesses come to their senses. And this latest example is Victoria's Secret. They've abandoned their woke nonsense and gone back to selling what actually sells, which is, well, lingerie. You can recall with us, all of us can cast our minds back to Victoria's Secret a few years ago when they debuted transvestite models and some plus size models. They put in some older women to represent, the over 50 set. And they even had some guys who were more like barbecue dads. They were striding the catwalk as well. And for every one of those new entrants, you had a stunning and otherworldly beauty who was not on display. And viewers noticed it and hated it. So remember, Victoria's Secret played into the aspirational nature of what men and women want. Men want an unbelievably Barbie-esque woman, and women want to be that unbelievably Barbie-esque, statuesque, amazing figure. And so they've decided, because their stock is nosedived to less than $15, to go back to what they know. Because they went back to their original format, their stock is now at $70. So some people made some real money there. Good for them. Good for them. All right, that's the program and the week. We'll be back with you on Monday with more Stacey on right here on SiriusXM's Patriot. Only the truth.
Attention. Have you racked up $10,000 or more in credit card debt? Are you barely getting by making minimum payments? With credit card debt reaching all-time highs, National Debt Relief is notifying consumers about significant debt relief options currently being made available to help those with overwhelming credit card debt. These options may reduce a large portion of credit card debt for those who qualify. You don't need to declare bankruptcy or take out a consolidation loan, and you may only have to pay back a fraction of what you owe, even if you have bad credit. National Debt Relief has already reduced the credit card debt for more than 550,000 consumers. So don't wait. If you owe $10,000, $20,000, or even $100,000 in credit card debt, you can now take advantage of this financial debt relief as the cost of living continues to skyrocket. To check what debt reduction you may qualify for, call 800-885-1212. That's 800-885-1212. Again, that's 800-885-1212. Tires matter. They're the only part of your vehicle that touches the road, and they're responsible for so much. Acceleration, braking, steering, and handling. Tread confidently with new tires from Tire Rack. Whether you're looking for expert recommendations or know exactly what you want, Tire Rack makes it easy. You'll get fast, free shipping, free road hazard protection, and convenient installation options. Try months. I hope you continue. But maybe we will. Maybe he'll give us some comments after he gets off the golf course, if that's what he's doing. But that's what we got today. Then, as we know, tomorrow is going to the NBA Finals. So that's not tomorrow. That's on Monday, actually. So apparently, I think Game 2 or something happened yesterday, and then he'll be back on Monday for the NBA Finals. We got a tele-rally up in New Jersey, some executive time on Monday. And so we'll see if things are picking up next week, but pretty quiet today. Not much happening on C-SPAN either. A bunch of Washington Journal stuff. We do have the National D-Day Memorial commemoration, and then mayors are all meeting, so a bunch of mayors around the country are getting together. 82nd anniversary of D-Day, the invasion of Normandy. Wild. Yeah, that was a heroic endeavor. Lots of really brave Americans killed that day. So shout out to all of our veterans out there as we pause to remember D-Day. Big one that was out there. So that's what's percolating out there. There was also a rumor that Susie Wiles was going to be leaving the administration. A lot of posts about this. The Daily Mail had an article saying, she's had enough. She can't take the chaos in the Trump administration. Turns out that's not true at all. The Daily Mail had an exclusive. They said, Susie Wiles is quietly planning her exit strategy after the midterms. And by the way, it's not unusual anyways for chief of staff individuals to leave. They don't stay around generally forever. It's kind of a good, position. Come in there, just grind hard, and then you burn out. And so we'll see if she ultimately stays. She says she will. But the Daily Mail had this article that was getting a lot of attention. Notably frustrated by Trump's recent cabinet appointments. Our latest story, dailymail.com, which you can read it, but she came out on yesterday. She said, not leaving. After an accomplishment-filled week by President Trump, she said, I have the pleasure of reading a piece of Friday fiction, courtesy of the Daily Mail. Now, to be so clear, I am not going anywhere. I am honored and proud to serve President Trump, proud of our team, and remain fully committed to advancing his agenda on behalf of the American people. Some in the media have spent a decade trying to manufacture drama around President Trump and people who work for him. They were wrong then, and they are wrong now. See you Monday. So we'll see what ultimately happens, but she is rejecting that outright, and we'll see if that holds. I think some of it will depend on the midterms. There might be a desire for a changing of the guard, but we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, it was an interesting argument, an interesting article. So that's part of the cabinet situation. Caroline Leavitt was out. She went back down to the reflecting pool at the Lincoln Monument. She said, we took a family trip to the Lincoln Monument yesterday, to check out the new reflecting pool. Absolutely stunning. DC is so beautiful again, just in time for our nation's 250th birthday. Lovely. Explaining, thank you, Mr. President, President Trump. And here's what it looks like right now. It's going to take a couple days to fill. I saw another post saying that it might take all the way up until Tuesday. It's like 6.5 million gallons, and it's just bubbling up through this center orifice. It is very, very slow to fill. So they're there watching the water come in. Those vehicles will obviously leave by the time it fills up. But that's what it's looking like, and it's a pretty nice reflection. I don't see any dullness in the reflection. Looks very good, and I think once it's full, it's going to look even better. So they were out there, nice looking family, little babies probably tucked away down in this stroller. And so Caroline Leavitt, hopefully she's back soon. We missed her press briefings. I did not say breast briefings, but she'll be back at some point. She's on maternity leave still, and we haven't seen really many press briefings. Been pretty quiet out there. I think Dr. Oz came out, Rubio came out for a little bit, and this is her enjoying the maternity leave, and then she'll be back. We also saw that there was an update from Rapid Response 47. Many of the accounts are now changing their profile pictures over to the celebration of the 250th, and a lot of that is going to be kicking off pretty soon. How great is it to have a president who's rebuilding the Capitol? And here's what this woman had to say over on the cables.
How great is it to have a president who is giving our nation's capital the attention to bring it back to the grandeur that it deserves, especially ahead of America's 250th birthday. You know, this is a project that even the most liberal DC residents have said, hey, it's pretty nice that the fountains are turned back on again. It's pretty nice that crime has gone down in the city. And President Trump wants our nation's capital to be a haven for residents and visitors alike. We are the greatest country in the world, and our capital should reflect that. But it's not just these awesome beautification projects that the president has undertaken, it's also his efforts to drive down violent crime, and we've seen great success doing that with crime down across the board. And so the president is going to continue to make DC safe and beautiful for residents and visitors alike. And how
nice. And there was this clip that was going around, kind of semi-viral, of this woman who doesn't sound like she's a fan of Trump per se. She said that it does look good. She says, I hate that I like it because it looks so good. And honestly, I've been down to the Lincoln Memorial a couple of times, and the pool, I've not been down there since the construction started, but I'm planning on it very soon to go check it out once it's full. I think they said Tuesday it'll be full, so we'll probably go out next week. But the reflecting pool just didn't have a lot of attention. People would go to the Lincoln Memorial and really enjoy that.
and then just kind of like walk around the reflecting pool. It wasn't like people aren't sitting out there, people aren't having picnics. It was just kind of like this stinky swamp, which is very symbolic for the entire city. But she was out with her puppy. She says, it was pretty dang good. Sure does.
It actually looks really good. Like, it makes the reflection look extraordinarily prominent in a way that it would not. And I hate that.
I hate that I like it, crying. Can you just set that aside for 2 minutes? It's really, it looks great as far as we can tell. And they were going to make it, I think the original outrage about it was a little bit more blue, like a little bit brighter blue. But it's pretty dark, and you can see it reflects beautifully. It's right there. And Caroline Levitt's photo also was sharing that too. So we'll go check it out. We'll do I want the fences to come down. I think there's still some fences up and around it right now. So your boy wants to get in there and just plunge his hand down in there. What is this nice new material? Because your boy's got a lot of experience with pools. And we've had a multiple conversations. What is the finish? It's like a plastic kind of, it's like a resin. Or, I don't know what it is exactly. We looked at it. We still didn't really get the details on the material. But it's getting filled, and we're going to go check it out. So it's looking good. Even the people who are not fans of Trump, they like it. And of course they do, because it looks good. So we'll go check it out. Now, there was also last week the news about Bill Pulte going over to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, and meltdown all over the place. They asked John Food about it. John, what do you think about this? I won't talk about it. Talk to Tom Cotton. Tom Cotton comes over. He says, I have no opinion on the matter, meaning they all hate the guy. So Pulte now apparently got the order from the president to just start firing people all across the board. Trump said in an interview that the Office of the Director of National Intelligence should, quote, be much smaller and maybe even terminated. Whoa! Trump said he wants Bill Pulte, as incoming acting director of national intelligence, to begin firing a large number of employees as part of a shakeup. In an interview yesterday, Trump said he's privately told Pulte that he believes the ODNI, which oversees 18 federal intelligence agencies, was unnecessary and or too big. He said, I'd like to see it smaller. I think there are a lot of people in there that shouldn't be there. Probably true. Asked whether he is calling on Pulte to fire people. He said, well, I wanted to start the process, adding that his eventual nominee to serve in the role will permanently and should continue the work. Trump stunned many of his own advisors when he said earlier this week that he was appointing Bill Pulte, the director of housing, to go over there. The move was met with skepticism from some Republicans who raised concerns about his lack of experience. The president named Pulte DNI on a temporary basis, and he can be there for 210 days. And as we mentioned, part of the strategy here that I think is brilliant is that the next person Trump nominates, they'll hope, I would presume, just coast on through. Because the Senate will be so mad that Pulte is there that they'll do anything to get rid of him. So we can nominate somebody. It's not Bill Pulte. So I vote in favor. All in favor? Yes, we'll take it. The president said he hopes Pulte can begin making changes across the board. Frankly, it might be good for him to shake it up before people come, Trump said, because if Pulte reduces the size in conjunction with me, and in conjunction with possibly the person coming in, he can do a lot of the hard work, and we wouldn't have to saddle somebody that goes in, right? Somebody goes in there, starts just cleaning house. I would imagine there'll be a bunch of lawsuits about that, so if Pulte does start firing people, they'll just say, he's not a Senate-confirmed DNI, so he doesn't have the power to do that. But then the next person who comes in will not have those decisions hanging over them, right? So Pulte will go in there to be like the cleanup crew. Then they won't nominate him to be the permanent. So he can just kind of take a wrecking ball to the institution, and then somebody else can come in and say, well, I didn't do that. Don't get mad at me. Versus if Pulte then gets nominated for the permanent position, and they'll just say, well, I can do these things. They can hit him over the head with any of his decisions. So Democrats and some Republicans have sounded the alarm, saying he's too close to the president. We don't need a weaponized DNI, said Majority Leader John Thune. Oh, really, John? What was your opinion on James Clapper when he was literally weaponizing it, along with the CIA, John Brennan, against President Trump? Didn't hear him screaming too much about that. Trump's decision to elevate Pulte has also complicated the push to reauthorize FISA, which the Democrats are now opposing in total. Early Friday, the Senate vote to move forward on the program failed after they said, well, what about Pulte? Trump said he's in the process of interviewing people for the permanent position. Didn't name them, though. He said Bill's not going to be there for that long, so relax. Trump was on Air Force One. He said he had 5 interviews for the job, and that Pulte would be the acting director for as long as it takes to get someone new in. He'll do a good job. He's watching during this time period, so I'll keep my eye on him. Reporters asked, why do you want him to reduce the staffing levels? He said, well, it's been way too high for too long. If he could cut that, I wouldn't mind that at all. Trump told the Journal here at Wall Street he wants Pulte to approach the job similarly to the way that Linda McMahon over at Education handled her agency. She moved to reduce the size of the department there, which Trump had previously said he wanted to eliminate. We've made that smaller, and similarly, the ODNI should be much smaller, Trump said, and this should maybe even be terminated. We'll make that decision. Pulte said last year that Fannie Mae was firing more than 100 employees. They briefed the president. They've got $100 billion in a spy budget. And, yeah, the president said he wants Pulte to release more classified documents about 2020. What kind of documents? Trump said, I would say everything. He should look at everything and make a determination. Pulte privately also argued to Trump that he would be good to succeed Tulsi. He said, I've been loyal to you. I'll go in there. I'll take care of business. The Journal previously reported that Tulsi was stepping down because of her husband's cancer, and she had a post about that. She said that it went well. They went in, they had some surgery, and that he was doing well. Some of them have been frustrated with Pulte. Some people call him Little Trump, which I'm sure is an accolade for the president. The worst of the worst are going to cry about it, like Pencil Neck Schiff. And of course, we saw Bill Pulte go after Lisa Cook, the Fed Reserve chair, or not the chair, but a board member who had mortgage fraud and signed financial documents illegally. So either marking her as incompetent or a liar in order to get better rates. We've got an election update. So this is the case of California versus Trump. It's related to the executive order, the one that would create the lists from the federal government that the states could connect with, and the other one that enables the U.S. Postal Service to actually validate against the list with barcodes on the envelopes, with logos, so that the mail-in ballots are treated with the care that they deserve. So this lawsuit has been percolating, and we saw in D.C. the Judge Carl Nichols last week or a week ago, before that, said that there was no real development that warranted an injunction by Norm Eisen and the rest of the Blues. That was the DSCC, that was the Latinos, and the other groups. All sued to stop that from happening. This is the one brought by the states. They sued in Massachusetts, and stuff has developed now. So we also read through the Postal Service proposed rules, which explained that really, I think the big takeaway on that whole proposal was about the barcodes. So you can track what goes in, you can track what goes out. Where did it go? Where did we receive it? You can identify ballot harvesting. You can identify multiple ballots going to the same location. Why are we sending 50 ballots to this one location? And corroborate it all. In other words, create a proper chain of custody, which they do not want at all. Their argument is that we don't need any of that. It's a privacy violation, and it's going to be damning. We're going to have to update the list. Some voters might be booted out. We saw I think one of Mark Elias's law groups or his NGOs or nonprofits had actually filed a suit saying college students might be confused because they might be absentee and they'll have to go out of state and then fill out additional forms. And what happens if the state doesn't have them and the state doesn't index them on the federal list, then their ballots won't count. And this is going to disenfranchise voters, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's not the federal government's problem. That's the state's problem. Maybe they should clean up their lists. But the states also will say that they have a way to check, right? Go in and just check that we received your ballot at the registrar's office. You may have done this. You may have gone to your Secretary of State and said, did you receive my ballot? You plug in your name, your date of birth, whatever. They say, we got it, showing that they received it. And they say that's sufficient enough. Of course, it isn't. But we got an update here. So the DOJ did submit this very short update, and they submitted this yesterday, courtesy of the Civil Division. They explained, all right, Judge, in Massachusetts, the League of Women Voters of Massachusetts and the state of California, right? These are the nonprofits that basically create themselves so that they have standing, so that they can file election lawsuits. And then as we see, back during COVID, for example, we had the Retired Alliance of Michigan. They sued a blue secretary called Jocelyn Benson. The blue secretary enters into a settlement agreement, and then they change the election rules at the final hour in the middle of COVID. So they're back. It's the same tactic, just a different issue. Here's what the DOJ said. All right, Judge, listen. We are now submitting a notice about recent developments in this matter. On June 4th, the DHS, Homeland, approved a recommendation from USCIS, Immigration, regarding implementation of Trump's executive order, including the creation of state citizenship lists as contemplated in the new executive order. Specifically, Homeland endorses a proposal for a two-part course of action. The first part is implementation of a Save Base. Okay, we're not going to get the Save America Act. That's okay. We'll just change some rules around. Of a save-based state voter roll verification, whereby state election officials can submit their entire voter roll records to the Alien Verification for Entitlements Program, the SAVE System for Verification. Okay, we've already got these checks and balances already set up. We're just going to plug this new data into one of the prior databases. The second part is implementation of a registry, whereby state election officials would securely access citizenship-related data from USCIS, Social Security, and Department of State for voter citizenship verification. We'll make sure you're a citizen, but where the underlying data would remain is in each agency's respective system. So we already have authority to create these systems. They already exist. So we're just going to plug in and cross-reference against those. Both parts are proposed to be operational, and this was a little bit of a surprise, by June 30th, 2026. So maybe get this all implemented before the election. Moreover, Homeland also contemplates working with the Postal Service to integrate Postal Service data sets from mail-in and absentee ballot participation lists once available and in compliance with applicable law, the Privacy Act, SORNs, PIAs, interagency agreements to monitor mail-in and absentee ballot flows, identify anomalies that may suggest voter fraud or misuse, and generate authorized investigative leads. Which is what they don't want, which is why they're all suing and having a meltdown about that. So all of that got submitted yesterday, Friday, and it'll be very curious to see if they take this back over to Carl Nichols in Washington, D.C. and say, see, now we've got proposals. His basis of his prior decision, which denied the injunction to Normaizen and his crew, was that nothing has happened yet. So I'm expecting them to say, something's happening now. So judge, now weigh that against the legalities. And in this case, they're not saying we're even doing anything new. We're just jacking into the existing systems. They already have authority under these various agencies. And we're also, once this does go into effect, going to comply with all of the laws. And so we're not contemplating anything illegal, obviously, and definitely, barely anything even new. We're just using the existing tools we have and have authority for to delineate and extend the integrity of the elections. So pretty good development there, and we're excited to see how quickly they can get this done. I mean, if it is done by June 20th, then that's going to mean these states better interface before the general elections come in November. Very curious. All right, so we've got that. Now we've got a big one about Butler. This was breaking yesterday, courtesy of Judicial Watch. Major update in the attempted Trump assassination case out of Butler. We saw that there was emails now between Thomas Matthew Crooks and a deputy, and Judicial Watch sued to get these heavily redacted pages released for us. We've got them all queued up here. You can see the redactions are numerous. We've got B5s, B6s, B7s, all across the board. And looking those up, we know that they're going to be smattered across a variety of redaction authority. We've got internal agency communications. Can't see what they were contemplating, very similar to a deliberative process. Attorney-client privilege, stuff that is happening inside the agency they don't want us to see. We've also got privacy interests, personal privacy interests. For individual right to privacy under the B6s, we've got the B7 redactions, a slew of them down here. But these are law enforcement records. We don't want anything to be released that's going to interfere with proceedings, deprive a person of a fair trial. He's dead. Constitute a violation of privacy, reveal confidential sources, reveal techniques, endanger the life and physical safety of an individual, which is spread around this entire tranche of 40-something plus pages. And so we'll come back to this, but Judicial Watch brought this to our attention saying, we forced the release of these 48 pages after a FOIA lawsuit. And we now know that a Butler County Sheriff's deputy exchanged emails with Thomas Matthew Crooks before the shooting in Butler. We'll see if we can piece together exactly what's inside of it. But the records also indicate that a SWAT officer also pulled from him a gray remote device with an antenna from Crooks' pocket after he was killed. Like a detonator or something? The records also show that a medic with the Beaver County Emergency Services Unit told the FBI that she was on the roof of the American Glass Research Building examining Crooks' body when she was informed that the police canine had a hit on the building, and she was told to evacuate where the body remained. So a dog canine may have sniffed a bomb, and he had a detonator with an antenna or something on his person. So they sued and filed that in July 25 after the FBI failed to respond to a FOIA request because, of course, for all the records related to Crooks, the records and the requests included investigative files, interview summaries, reports, comms, database records, as well as any other FBI communications between personnel, sources, contractors, and more. There was a heavily redacted FBI communication titled Disc of 5 Deputies that were conducted on July 16th. It summarizes interviews, and all of that is chronicled in this document. So you can see we've got the standard forms here from the FBI. Hi, Mr. Jason. The FBI has completed its 5th review of the records. We're redacting most of it. 250 pages were reviewed, and 38 pages are being released. So there's still gobs of data that we are not seeing. So 38 out of 250, very minor percentage. And here's more of the standard details for what we are withholding and why we're withholding it, all delineated here. We also then see the report. FBI 302. They say, okay, on Tuesday, July 16th, Special Agent Redacted got an email from Redacted. Email address here, telephone number there, address here. Someone else received an email from Redacted. Redacted and Special Agent requested information about Thomas Crooks. Redacted provided the following verbatim information via email to the Special Agent saying, hi, blank. Happy to help how I can. My preference is by email so I can fit responding in during my working time at this time, typically Tuesday, Wednesday afternoons. I assume your inquiry is about Thomas Crooks. I understand redacted no longer applies since his death. Redacted Thomas Crooks, I don't know what that redaction is. Something redacted in blank and blank in blank, both blank or blank components. I am also something who something at this, but to my memory, I've never seen or met Thomas Crooks outside of this, and I had with him in any capacity, either in person or on Zoom. So it sounds like almost like a training course, but this person responding, was doing some sort of a course or an educational component. And so I've never had something outside of blank I had with him in any capacity, either in person or in Zoom. Is she a trainer? Does she do concealed carry licensing? Does she do, coaching somewhere? Is she a professor at a school? My interactions with Thomas Crooks were limited during the blank. This all redacted. Maybe she's a weapons trainer. I recall Thomas Crooks was something, redacted, redacted. During the blank, my interactions with Thomas Crooks were limited only to this. Beyond that, I probably had a few emails back and forth with Thomas Crooks regarding something and regarding something else. All my interactions with Crooks were unremarkable beyond regular blank interactions, coaching, training, facilitation. Related to this, I'm not sure I can provide much more info beyond what I've written here. Until hearing about him over the weekend, I would have expected him to succeed in a 4-year engineering program and go on to be an engineer, right? So maybe she's like a professor. I do have redacted, as well as redacted, all of which I'd be happy to share digitally, but I'm guessing would not lend much insight into your inquiry. So maybe these are test results, maybe these are videos, I don't know. Copy of the email from so-and-so to so-and-so is attached, and here's more from the actual email. So she sent that Wednesday, July 17th. Remember, the assassination attempt took place on the 13th, so that's about 4 days later. That's the official email. Let me know how I might be able to help. Another email goes out. I spoke with blank and blank yesterday, wanted to follow up about her email. I would like to speak with you for no more than 5 minutes. Give me a call regarding you interaction with a blank. Is that a source, confidential, regarding students? If you prefer not to speak over the phone, an email response about this would suffice. If you have any questions, please contact me on the cell phone number. All of it again redacted for the various reasons. Here's some more details. On July 16th, TFO redacted of FBI task force and trooper conducted interviews of this sergeant, this deputy, and that deputy, and this one. The interviews were recorded using a recording device, and we marked them on a disc. Continues. On Wednesday, Special Agent telephonically interviewed this person, telephone number, email address here, work address here, and provided the following. Blank advised that she, something with Crooks, and the something, was an blank, therefore blank with Crooks. Blank advised that she did not recognize Crooks when everything was on the news over the weekend, but on Sunday night, a New York Times reporter emailed her asking questions. Wow. Blank advised she checked her emails and records and only had 2 email comms from Crooks, and both emails were in regard to something and to something. Blank advised she did not have any personal interaction with Crooks. Right here, maybe outside this or beyond that. Continuing, there were also attempts to identify potential threats in violation of the law. The open source and blank use are redacted. Will be involved in the above listed assessment. The authorized law enforcement, national security, and public safety purposes for the use of this is to this. Due to the likelihood of this event impacting the domestic violent extremist threats, redacted. Redacted. The following parameters describe how redacted. Use will focus on all redacted. The FBI assesses redacted law enforcement protections. The use of blank will focus on that. Boilerplate language. The attached spreadsheet is not inclusive of all the terms. Here's more. So-and-so Beaver County Department was interviewed. A trooper was there, another trooper, another special agent. The interview was audio recorded. This person confirmed that she was present at the fairgrounds at the Trump rally. Her responsibilities included providing medical backup for the team and any police response. She got there at 9 a.m. and was positioned on the spectator screening area. Blank is employed as a blank and something else for Beaver County. So-and-so reported that the Beaver County team were provided 2 Butler radios to monitor different channels. One was patrol. The commander was notified to move, so the team prepared to move. And during that time, Blank advised that the team was also aware of reporting from a sniper element of a questionable subject in the area that could not be located. Blank was in the Beaver County ESU vehicle with the rest of the team. The vehicle driven by this person initially stopped at the command post and moved toward the first victim. The Bearcat was then moved between the victim and the crowd. The Butler County medic named Redacted was the first to victim. Blank reported there were 3 healthcare providers with the victim, so Blank did not move to provide support. She then looked for others who may need medical assistance. This person also did not have access to the radios, only had access to the county radio, to a Beaver County radio. She does not remember who told her, but there were reports for medical assistance at the AGR facility. She coordinated with this person to request operator support to travel from the stage area to the facility. She traveled with this person and this person. They went through a small space in the fence that separated the fairgrounds. She was advised that there may have been multiple operators down, a potential shootout, and the shooter was down. She encountered a uniformed officer and was told that support was needed on the roof. She utilized a black collapsible ladder to get on the roof of the building. Then in 1823, she got on the roof and did not see any officers down. She was told by others on the roof to evaluate the shooter. She observed the shooter had injuries not sustainable for life. She checked the shooter's pulse on the carotid on the right side and did not find one, pronounced him dead in 1825. This person observed the shooter laying prone, face down, and handcuffed, flex cuffs. The rifle was off to the shooter's left. There were medical supplies near the shooter, but it did not belong to her. There were 2 Butler SWAT officers, 1 Washington SWAT officer, a uniformed Butler County officer on the roof. Washington SWAT checked the shooter's right pocket and discovered a gray remote device with numerical push buttons and an antenna and a cell phone. What was that? Blank recalls that EOD showed up on the roof to look at the gray remote device. She remembers being told that a canine hit on the building beneath them, and they were told, get off the roof. The shooter's body remained on the roof, but maybe there's a bomb. Blank does not know when the shooter's body was removed. She provided a body bag by Butler County EMS, later provided this bag to an individual from the FBI or the Secret Service, doesn't recall. Someone else does not recall the time she left the scene, but it was after 1 a.m. on July 14th. She participated in a debrief with the Beaver County ESU team. Also did not attend the operations briefing at 9. She believed that Butler County coordinated with Allegheny Health Network to have a physician and a medical team. Does not know who was in charge of the medical response. More notes redacted. Being saved to a hard drive. They say, here's more. Somebody, a white male, date of birth redacted, was interviewed in front of the residence. Agent identify himself. This person relayed the following. On Saturday, July 13th, Blank was sitting in the driveway of the residence at this address listening to the rally. Blank and Blank were watching the house while Blank was out of town. Mobile number is, the owner of the house is, then this person, and he and someone left the driveway and entered the house, all of it redacted. And, okay. Pennsylvania DMV and other queries revealed the driver's license. No criminal history from NCIC. They do a background check on Thomas Matthew Crooks. Turns out that's him. No criminal records, no domestic relations records found, no child support warrants, no registry of firearms. Pennsylvania doesn't keep one. Other details, all redacted. Wild. On July 14th, blank, redacted. Another one redacted. Another one redacted. Redacted. Labor query identified his employment at this location, which is a Bethel Park Nursing and Rehab Center located in Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. All redacted. Maybe they went over and talked to them. We requested checks. We also were looking for WhatsApp, TikTok, Twitter, and Amazon accounts. So we conducted that. We got his license plate back. Criminal history check was positive and identified FBI number and Social Security. He does have some criminal history. It included this and this with an FBI number. So some criminal history positive. Pennsylvania firearms checks also identified 3 associated firearms with verifiable calibers. Blank telephone numbers were that one, and that one. Open source resource also had a Snapchat with this username in addition to Amazon, WhatsApp, Twitter accounts, all identified. We then talked to this person by phone. After identifying ourselves as agents, we got this information. Blank was present at the rally for Trump. From 4:30 to 5, observed a red pickup truck pulling towards the parking lot, where Blank and other spectators congregated. Redacted observed a Caucasian male exit his vehicle and started screaming, demanding everyone get off the property. Unsub 1 then exited the scene, returned 2 additional times, observing the spectators from his vehicle. Blank then noticed a man, Unsub 2, on Meridian Drive, walking near the side of the AGR building, who was not seen with a firearm, but was holding on what appeared to be a black camera bag. Then he entered the building, was not seen again. Later that day, this person heard people yell, "There was a man on the roof of the building!" with a long black object that looked like a long gun. Blank observed the man being situated at the right corner of the building closest towards the water tower. Blank then recalled members of the Pennsylvania State Police arriving to the scene and unholstering their weapons. Blank then heard 3 pops from the roof. The shooter was located, followed by 5 10-second pause. Shooter then heard 3 additional pops prior to the shooter being neutralized by presumably the Secret Service counter snipers. Once the shooter was neutralized, law enforcement secured the scene. The total time was approximately 5 to 10 seconds. Caucasian male, brown eyes, brown hair, broad build, short hair, large forehead. He continues on July 14th. IA Blank reviewed posts made from an X account. The account made a post on this that referenced a previously deleted post. According to a Blank news article from this date, someone made a now deleted post on X that contained the following. Right here, possible email is that. What kind of post was that? And the rest of this is sealed. We've also got sealed by court orders. What a joke. Someone else, date of birth, agreed to be interviewed at a Marriott hotel. Agents were there and present. After being advised that we're federal agents, all of it redacted. All of it redacted. What a joke. Same thing here. We talk to this person, Marriott, the nature of the interview, all redacted, and that's the document. So, okay, so they got triggered on a bomb, according to a canine, a big one, such that they evacuated the roof. He was emailing law enforcement prior to this entire incident. Don't know what her capacity was, or whether this was a firearms training or a bomb training, or this was just a standard criminal justice class at a local college. Didn't see anything really about education here. And the whole thing is redacted. So Judicial Watch had to sue to get this information. He had a bunch of social media accounts, and we still know very, very little about this. The idea that he was just there alone and was not communicating with anybody, just a lone wolf, seems like a stretch to me. But shout out to Judicial Watch for getting their hands on this document, and I don't know why we can't see more about it. Is it going to reveal FBI investigative sources and methods? I don't think so. He's dead. So they just wrapped this whole thing up with a nice little bow, said, here, just eat it, America. There's nothing else you need to see here. Who trained him how to build a remote detonator device and connect that to maybe a bomb? Did they find a bomb? They told us he had no social media at all. That was the main narrative. Didn't find anything about the guy. No one knows anything about him. He has a ton of social media. And may have been communicating, maybe may have been very communicative with other people. He was so communicative, he was communicating with law enforcement. What was that about? So the cover-up continues. Judicial Watch is on it. We're happy to see these documents get released, but we still know very little. And for a very transparent FBI, this feels like they're still hiding the ball on the truth from all of us. So we'll see if that changes in the foreseeable future. Keep our eye on this one. All right, friends, let's see what you say about all of this and more. What else are you seeing out there today? It's a beautiful Saturday. Good to see you, J-Ma, in the house. Wookie, sir, 34 months as a member. I am sure I canceled until unblocked on X, Rob. What? I am sure I canceled until unblocked on X. I don't think I blocked you, Wookie, sir. I don't really block people on X. I don't think I blocked anybody on X. I'm trying to think if I blocked anybody. If somebody posts, like, nudity, then I'll block them, because I don't want that crap showing up in my feed. Are you posting wieners? But other than that, and I still, like, very rarely see that. So I can't think I've blocked anybody.
Like 2 hours? Yes. And then eventually, he made a video about me saying, I'm going to hell. And I'm just like, what? I'm like, bro, what is wrong with you? Yeah. I made a whole video unprompted, didn't say anything about me just going to hell. And then I'm just like, what? And then he's like, oh, how did this delete me? And I was just like, I'm not gonna lie, you're trying to scare me, so I blocked him. And then a couple weeks ago on Instagram, that nigga's made to unfollow people. Yeah, so like, I didn't unfollow him. Right. I just blocked his number because he would call me and like send me paragraphs, man. Oh my god, well, you know. And so I was just like, yo, I gotta block you, man. Like, you're actually like this is scary. And then he ended up a couple weeks ago, he was like, yo, unblock me. Like, this is work. And I was like, no, I'm not like I'm not a problem with him, but like I'm not gonna go work with someone that said I'm going to hell. He was talking to me going to hell. He's like, I'm not gonna be your friend no more. But yes. I'm not gonna.
The United States Supreme Court has just dropped an absolute bombshell, a 6-3 ruling that has the Democrats absolutely reeling. And I'll tell you what, it sure seems like the Supreme Court actually has some bonus bombshells to drop here in the very near future. Now, do me a favor and make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But you know what? Let me go ahead and ask all of you a question here to really kick things off. Do you folks in the audience think that American parents across the country should have some sort of say in the type of material that's being taught to their children in the public school system, especially if it's material that might be perverse or sexually explicit? Well, personally, I sure do. And I'll tell you what, as of this morning, so does the United States Supreme Court. Ladies and gentlemen, take a look at this. Just in breaking news, the United States Supreme Court has ruled that parents are now officially allowed to block their children from LGBTQ ideologies inside of the classroom. Some more information. Breaking news, the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled that parents can now officially opt their children out of certain school instructions involving LGBTQ-related topics. Well, yeah, I mean, this seems like a complete and total no-brainer. Take a look at the report.
Regarding religious liberty and whether parents should be informed and be able to opt their children out from reading books in the classroom that go against their faith. Shannon Brame is at the Supreme Court. We were watching for this one. What's the verdict?
We were, Dana. So this brought together a coalition of parents of different religious faiths and backgrounds who said there used to be a rule in this particular school district that would let them know when there were books that dealt with issues that may be in conflict with their faith. So many parents were opting out because the school district was doing it. Well, 6-3 today, the decision by Justice Alito, they said these parents have been earned at least a preliminary injunction. So while this case plays out, they said the board has to notify them about any book that's in question or anything similar, so that their kids can be excused if it's in conflict with their faith. He says, as we've explained, without that, parents are left with this choice: either risk their child's exposure to burdensome instruction or pay substantial sums for alternative educational services. Because at one point, Justice Jackson during the arguments had said, why don't we just go to a different school? Why don't you put them in a private school or homeschool them? Justice Alito's and others saying that's not practical for a lot of people. It was said by Justice Sotomayor, Justice Jackson says, today's ruling threatens the essence of public education. She says it's not about bringing kids together to learn about a particular faith, but a range of concepts and views that reflect our entire society. Exposure to new ideas has always been a vital part of that project until now. She didn't think, the dissenters didn't think that the parents should get the opt-out. Justice Alito and the majority say they should.
Exposure to far-left radically progressive ideas. That is what these dissenting Supreme Court justices want to see. Ideas like, I mean, how does this sound? Your children go to public school and they are forced to read and participate in story time, during which the teacher is reading Pride Puppy or The Prince and the Knight, who are in love with each other, of course. Born Ready to Be Gay. You know, it's this type of stuff that they want to force our children to read in the elementary schools, in kindergarten. But folks, I'll tell you something. Speaking of Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, who they mentioned in that report, one of these three dissenting far-left radical progressive justices, I've actually got something that I want all of you to take a look at. You see, when she was arguing against a parent's right to choose what sort of material their children are exposed to in the public school system, as the Supreme Court was deliberating over the details of this particular case, this right here, here's an excerpt. This is what Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson had to say for herself. Listen to this. It's going to blow your mind.
And I guess I'm struggling to see how it burdens a parent's religious exercise if the school teaches something that the parent disagrees with. You have a choice. You don't have to send your kid to that school. You can put them in another situation.
Unbelievable. So, folks, I'm sorry. You know how President Trump calls her low IQ Ketanji Brown Jackson? Low IQ is the proper name for her. Her argument as to why children should be forcibly exposed to potentially profane, sexually explicit material in our public schools. You've all seen the books. Without their parents' consent, even against their parents' consent, is that, well, according to Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, if their parents are unhappy about it, if they have a problem with this type of literature, well, then they can go to another school. They can go find a different school to go to, or they can start homeschooling or doing something else. Now, obviously, for anyone with a functioning brain, which Ketanji Brown Jackson, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, does not have inside her head, this is entirely ridiculous. First off, many families across the country, my family when I was a kid, we were low income. Income was limited in the household. Maybe both parents are working. Or perhaps families that just live in a small town and there's only one school in the town to go to. You can't just go to another school. There's only one school. They don't have the option to change schools or just go to a different one. And for obvious reasons, not every family has the opportunity to homeschool either. Homeschooling is great, really it is, but it's not a realistic option for everyone. If you can do it, great, but not everyone can do it. Also, we must note here something really important to take note of. For decades now, far-left ideologues, just like Ketanji Brown Jackson, have actually been trying to shut down homeschooling altogether. No, you see, their ultimate objective is to leverage the power of the federal government to legally, federally compel you to send your children to public schools, which they want to turn into effectively left-wing indoctrination centers. Very clearly, that's why they dissented here. But thankfully, just this morning, that agenda, as we've seen coming out of the Supreme Court, just got shut down, thank God. But also, like I said, the United States Supreme Court, also, on top of this, which really is a massive deal, a massive win for American parents, and also American children nationwide. Beyond this massive win today, coming out of the Supreme Court optional ruling, the Supreme Court also has some bonus massive rulings coming up here in the very near future. See, the current Supreme Court session actually comes to an end in right around 4 weeks from now, meaning they've got to release all of their current deliberations, all of their current rulings and opinions here over the next 4 weeks before the session ends. So I'll tell you what, it's going to be a very eventful month as we navigate through June. Okay, so inquiring minds would like to know, what might we expect over the next 4 weeks or so as the Supreme Court is pumping out all of their final opinions before they go on break? Well, really we're looking for two big opinions, to be clear. The first one, ladies and gentlemen, is the Supreme Court of the United States going to strike down President Trump's birthright citizenship executive order? You might remember, this was a part of President Trump's day one agenda. He got back in the White House in January of 2025. He said, listen, this birthright citizenship thing is ridiculous. You're telling me illegal aliens can sneak inside of our country, start popping out babies, and then their babies get default by nature of being born on magic American soil, their babies and become just as American as you and me. Our ancestors have been here forever. I mean, personally, I'm a 14th generation American. My family showed up in 1635 in the colonial days before America was America. An illegal alien sneaks in the country who's here illegally, pops out a baby. That child is technically just as American as me and just as American as you. This is absurd. And so this is why President Trump signed an executive order, day one, back in the White House, shutting down birthright citizenship. It went up to the Supreme Court. Of course, legal battle ensued. Now, I'll tell you, as you can see, I'm sure you might have noticed, this one is a long shot. What are the odds the Supreme Court strikes down President Trump's birthright citizenship executive order? Well, people say put your money where your mouth is. The bettors, the gamblers here, they say 94% chance that the Supreme Court tosses out President Trump's executive order. However, I'm an optimist. I'm a glass half full type of guy. What does that mean? Flip it. That means there's a 6% chance, maybe more, who knows, percent chance that the Supreme Court actually upholds. Folks, I'm going to tell you something. In the slim chance, it might be slim,
However, in the slim chance the Supreme Court upholds President Trump's birthright citizenship executive order mandating that only the children of American citizens then become American citizens as well, if this becomes the new law of the land, our republic is saved. Well, it's one of the steps, one of the big steps towards ultimately saving our republic. We got to pray for this one. If you're the type of person that believes in the power of prayer, you got to activate it here. Okay, there's another massive Supreme Court ruling, though, that we're going to be getting in the next couple of weeks. This one here, the odds are looking a little bit better. What are the odds that the Supreme Court of the United States bars, bans, prohibits the counting of mail-in ballots after Election Day? You guys have seen what the Democrats have been doing for a very long time. The COVID 2020 presidential election, stolen election. You saw how the 2022 midterms played out, stolen elections across the country. You saw what's happening in California literally right this very moment with the gubernatorial election and the Los Angeles mayoral election. They're stealing these elections in real time, literally right this moment as I'm speaking. And how are they doing it? Well, they keep on finding batches of mail-in ballots. Oh, look, it's another 10,000 mail-in ballots. All of them are voting for Democrats. Got to count those ones. And they're counting these ballots now in California 5 days after voting day. Almost a week later. And they're still counting mail. This is absurd. And this is perhaps the primary mechanism with which the Democrats and the far left have been rigging and manipulating our elections, really undermining our elections for years now. Let's look at the betting odds. Money where your mouth is. 73% chance that the Supreme Court does, in fact, federally prohibit the counting of mail-in ballots after Election Day nationwide. Why? Well, it's really not that complex and simple. It's called voting day. What does that mean? You need to vote before or during voting day, not after voting day. What's more, all the counting must be completed midnight on voting day. If you're counting 3 or 4, 5 days later, sorry, you got to do it faster. That is the standard which needs to be set. If we can get this thing passed in the Supreme Court, it seems like we will, folks, another massive step towards actually saving this republic. The Democrats have been using and manipulating these mail-in ballots, absentee ballots, counting them after the fact. It's unbelievable they've been doing this for almost 2 years. We're on the cusp of shutting that. Folks, all of us patriotic Americans, President Trump, we just keep on winning in the Supreme Court. You look at the lower courts. Let me give you an example of the degree to which the far-left radical progressives have weaponized the lower court federal judiciary. Trump right now and his legal team, they've got something like a 35% in the lower courts because they just keep on having far-left radical progressive judge after far-left radical progressive judge swap them down. Are they properly interpreting the law in good faith? No. This is called law. They love judicial purity. Is what this is. However, every time one of these judges, far-left radical progressive judges, swats down President Trump and his America First agenda, goes to the appellate courts. Sometimes it goes up to the Supreme Court, like we're talking about now. In the Supreme Court, Trump has, like right now, I kid you not, something like a 95% win rate. 95% win rate. Just to really highlight how correct Trump's America First agenda is versus how corrupt these lower federal judiciary rulings are. So, folks, we are on the right path here. It's going to be a big month. I'm telling you, some of these victories, the one we got today, is one we're looking at soon, and even the birthright citizenship one. Do a little prayer. Hail Mary. Folks, all of this is what it's going to take to finally put America first. Ladies and gentlemen, right this very moment, the California State Democrats are very clearly attempting to rig an election in real time, right in front of all of our very eyes. That much is painfully obvious. But what if I told you that everything that is currently happening right now down in California is actually part of yet another one of President Trump's master plans. What if the California State Democrats have just blindly stumbled into yet another one of President Trump's traps? Well, today we're going to break all of that down. But first, do me a favor. Make sure to hit that like button and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Now, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at where things currently stand. What is going on in California? Let's start off with the bad news. Spencer Pratt is likely going to be overtaken by the far-left candidate. Nithya Rahman is her name, and she's expected to overtake him today. This graph here, you're looking at it, shows the count on election day all the way up to last night. Nithya did this by suddenly winning first in every single new ballot drop. How weird is that? You can see, let's look at the chart. Karen Bass up top is 35% of the vote. She's just maintaining where she is, not up, not down, just not the same. Pratt is plummeting. Nithya Rahman is surging, skyrocketing. North Korean elections have more self-respect than what we're witnessing right here. Even they would find it absurd for the third place candidate to suddenly jump up to first place on every ballot drop days after the election has concluded. This is just ludicrous. What's more, here's an even better chart, and I really want you to take a look at this. Just in, a Karen Bass Nithya Rahman runoff is looking increasingly likely in November, according to Saturday's batch of election results that came in late last night. Council member Nithya Rahman just gained 2.24 points over Spencer Pratt, cutting Pratt's lead down to 1.11% in the LA mayoral race. And you can see, what do you notice here? Karen Bass just as flat as a pancake. Okay, as flat as the ocean's horizon. Pratt in yellow, right here. He's in the middle in yellow, plummeting, tanking. Nithya Rahman, as more and more of these ballots keep coming in, she just keeps on skyrocketing, surging. Now, here's what is very peculiar. As all of these late mail-in ballots come trickling in, Karen Bass's vote percentage has had literally zero change. Not at all. No, all of these new votes are going directly, they're getting directly funneled, it seems like, towards Nithya Rahman, as Spencer Pratt's share of the vote just continues to plummet down. And keep in mind here, only the top two candidates here get to move forward to the actual mayoral election in November, a couple months from now. Very curious. Pardon me for noticing this, but it almost seems as if someone is rigging the election to make sure that the only two candidates moving forward towards the November election are both far-left Democrats. No common sense Republicans allowed. Huh. It almost seems like that. But now, take a look at this. Because of all of these irregularities, now there's actually massive, numerous federal investigations, plural, to figure out what's really going on here. What the hell is going on here? In fact, yesterday afternoon, a U.S. attorney under Trump's directive actually showed up to the Los Angeles election office to personally inspect with his own two eyes the ongoing operations. Seems like they're not really doing much other than adding to Nithya Rahman's tally here, to be honest with you. We also this morning just got this statement here. I want to share something with you here. We got a statement here this morning from another one of Trump's U.S. attorneys. And here's where all of this is going to start making sense. Remember, I said the Democrats seem to have just walked into one of President Trump's master traps. Well, let's start making sense of this entire situation. Here's a statement from one of the U.S. attorneys here. This morning, California is blocking a federal audit of its voter rolls. California allows first-time voters to register using forms of ID that most Americans would find surprising, including a gym membership card, employer ID card, credit or debit card, a prescription drug label, insurance card. Keep in mind, California provides free healthcare coverage insurance to undocumented immigrants. You just need one of these forms of ID, if you can even call it that, in order to register to vote in the state of California. This is insanity. This is permitted when a voter fails to provide a social security number or a driver's license at registration. Our office believes this policy deserves a closer look. Thus, we have the federal investigation. We also have serious concerns about how California maintains its voter rolls. There are open questions about whether the state is promptly removing deceased voters from the voter rolls, people who have moved out of the state, and individuals convicted of disqualifying felonies. On top of that, California allows third parties to collect and turn in ballots on a voter's behalf. What? A practice otherwise known as ballot harvesting, with very few restrictions. This makes it very difficult to track who actually received, completed, and submitted each ballot. For over a year, the Department of Justice has been trying to audit California's voter rolls. Federal law gives the Attorney General the authority to review state voter files and confirm that only eligible U.S. citizens are voting in federal elections. Associate Attorney General Harmeet Dillon sent California a letter explaining our legal authority. California refused to comply, claiming state privacy laws block the review, an argument that does not hold up because those laws don't apply to the federal government in this context. As such, we have sued the state of California in federal court, and the case is currently before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. If California genuinely wants voters to trust its elections, it should open up its records, not fight to keep them closed. Here's the question of the day. What are they afraid of? And so, folks, let me share an idea with you. Is it possible that President Trump, the Trump administration, the DOJ, legal team, is it possible that they are actually carefully watching what is currently happening in California, carefully observing and investigating everything that's currently going on? Also, that the evidence of these California state election irregularities can then be used to help win this legal case in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. At which point,